Hello, I'm VinzerFlinn, and welcome back to the Book of Flynn, where we are re-watching Buffy Season 2 and Clone Wars Season 2. And of course, with me as always, it's Reigna Flynn!
Hello, everybody. I am currently also looking at the fish doorbell, the fish doorbell that they have in
What are you talking about?
the Netherlands. It's a fish doorbell. There's like a dam that they built, and there's fish that are getting predated by like predator fish on the other side because they're getting blocked by this dam. So in order to go through, they've actually set up a camera. This is a real thing. A camera with basically so people can watch it and look for fish, and they can ring the doorbell so someone knows to go and open the dam to let the fish through.
You're on one weird subreddit.
I learned about it on John Oliver.
I was going to ask you what's going on in Stardew Valley. I thought that's where you were going with that right away, because it wouldn't surprise me one bit.
You know, if they added that into the game, I would allow it.
Be surprised.
No. I haven't played a lot of Stardew this week. I'm edging towards perfection. There's a blue guy in the desert island below Stardew Valley where if you get perfection, I don't know, I think he gives you a mall or something. I haven't figured that part out yet, but he's blue and he's like this guy. You have to put an object into a box in a tunnel in order to activate the quest to find him.
Perfection at what?
The game, like to finish the game.
Oh, I didn't know it was finishable.
Yeah, there's like a finish counter that you can get once you meet this guy and get into his inner lair. I think you have to earn like so many coins or something in order to get access to him.
I had to try really hard to do just a very boring introduction for you because we've been watching Taskmaster again. We're catching up in season 18. So, I mean, every time Greg introduces Alex, it's some insulting thing. Like he's privately confided to me that he hates the Welsh or some shit like that. But I didn't want to do that to you. So
no, I quite like the Welsh.
It's very hard not to do it's little VinzerFlinn, the high pitched Taskmaster. Anyway, moving on.
I'll come out like Miss Doubtfire.
All right, well, let's get back to work. What do you say?
All right, let's go into a lighthearted episode. Clone Wars, Season 2, Episode 20, Death Trap. I was like, this bodes well.
Sounds cheerful.
Who my father was matters less than my memory of him. Prediction. Someone is coming out of this episode with daddy issues. Not quite. Went into this with daddy issues.
Yeah.
In the recap, they talk about how Skywalker and Windu are on space vacay aboard a Jedi cruiser Endurance, which it was weird for me to hear this called a Jedi cruiser.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, the cruiser is set to rendezvous with the Republic frigate. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to say that word properly. But they are unaware of something deadly in their midst. Dun, dun, dun!
Quick side note is that we are 75% of the way through season 2 of Andor, which has been excellent. And no spoilers, but because it's the Yularen character who's giving the recap at the start of every Clone Wars, and there is one point where they say in the show, which is in the midst of the Imperial era, they say something like Yularen's on the phone or something, and it's supposed to be scary, but I can't take it seriously because of this younger John Cleese version of him.
Admiral Cleese, who always will be. Honestly, it's a missed opportunity he didn't play him in the Star Wars movies. On the frigate, Professor Boba is talking to a group of cadets from the Clone Youth Brigade as they approach the cruiser. And I get that this is a cadet-like program, but it still feels a little bit mandatory because it's all part of their training. And I didn't realize that there were little Bobas, because I thought that they kind of walked out Kind of like that Doctor Who episode where they walk out like an adult kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, they actually, it's very easy to forget about, but in Attack of the Clones, when Kenobi goes to Kamino and he sees them, there are kids and they're accelerated to grow up quickly. So you got the younger guys, and then you got the Tamir Morrison older guys, but there is actually a middle version as they're aging. They show briefly who's played by a third actor, and that's when but they do grow up very quickly. So yeah.
Okay. There's a kid with swoopy hair and a nose that smells an unscooped litter box nearby. And the others gossip about the last-minute replacement. Mayday, mayday, think we found the peril. As we learn throughout this scene, they all have their own nicknames. One name's Whiplash, but they call him Whip. They ask the newbie what his story is. He states he's from the 322nd and that they already had their tour, but he missed it because he was injured. And then I was like, that's when I clicked in that these were little Bobas. And then I went, ooh, the one with the swoopy hair reminds me of the one from Uh-Oh.
They did a surprisingly good job of capturing that. What's his name? Oh my god, I'm going to kick myself. Anyway, the guy that played young Boba Fett and his hair, they captured that quite convincingly.
Well, I mean, for me, of all people, who barely is able to remember movies 1 through 3. 3 is basically still a mystery to me. I get the gist of what happens, but I don't remember specifics. There's a pregnancy, someone falls in lava, you know. You should get me to summarize the movies.
I think you just did. You just summarized the prequels pretty good.
After I realized this is the one that might be from Clone Wars or Attack of the Clones, is that what the second one's actually called?
Yeah.
Oh, I always thought it was Clone Wars, and that's why I was like, why would they call the show Clone Wars? Clone Wars. Clone Wars. Welcome to a new episode of Clone Wars.
And I mean, the titles of the sequels, Revenge of the Sith is a great title, but I remember when the movies came out, when they said, the episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and I was like, what? And then Attack of the Clones, and I was like, what? And it had grown on me, but at the time I was like, what are we calling these? Like, you really?
When I realized it's him, I'm like, oh no, Mace Windu. Oh no. And then I went, never mind, get him, baby Boba.
Right? You get on his side quickly, at least I did.
Yeah. As they tease him for being soft, one with a Superman hair curl, whose name turns out to be Jax, comes between them and sends another called Hotshot away. The newbie introduces himself as Lucky. It's like, did he get his name for breaking his arm? Jax reminds Lucky to not be alone as they're stronger together, and there's that, like, mentality of togetherness that's probably enhanced in the clones versus him, because he's a relatively, like, he's a clone, but I think he's one of the less diluted ones.
Boba?
Yeah.
Boba he wasn't fast grown, he was untampered with, so Jango raised him as an actual baby. So Boba is, for all intents and purposes, Jango's natural born son. He's not tampered with. So whereas the Shinies, the basic frontline clone troopers, they are bred to be obedient and all that stuff. Boba's not. He is as defiant as Jango. He is his own person.
Okay, perfect. I just wasn't sure if he was like someone like Bobasaurus Rex or whatnot, like where they're slightly less,
some of them are more independent, like the Commandos, and then even above that the Null Arcs, which they don't really get into, but it's a very important distinction to make, is Boba does not have that I'm going to do what you say attitude that all the rest of the clones do.
Clearly, as we go on, we'll see loads of that. Over on the cruiser, the frigate docks with the cruiser, and the cadets are marveling at their full-grown counterparts. Lucky stares completely disinterested ahead. His eyes flash when Jack says not to be nervous because it's not like they're Jedi. Too soon. Speaking of, Skywalker and soon-to-be-screwed Windu enter the room and greet their guests.
Soon-to-be-screwed Windu.
I'm watching Lucky's face like a hawk through this entire scene, and his eyes are not leaving Windu the moment he walks into the room. Mace starts to introduce them, but Skywalker's like, we gotta go see something and see 2 knights, and Windu's like shaking his head in the background. Skywalker is being uncharacteristically nice to the cadets, and really stood out because he was never that nice to Ahsoka.
Yeah, it's true. He was much harder. He was much harder on Ahsoka. You're right.
Also, quick question: where is she?
Fort Lauderdale, spring break. I don't know where she is.
I thought the whole point of training a Padawan was that you were around to train the
Yeah, you know,
Padawan.
normally that'd be true, but you know, war were declared, so you know things change.
I guess. Orange Boba tells them that Kenobi is waiting for them in the briefing room with instructions, so the two Jedi head to that room. The cadets are super excited, all except Lucky. He hasn't stopped looking at Windu until he left the room. I'm glad they made it obvious, but they did a really good job with the hair. Over with the Jedi, Windu observes that Skywalker seems disappointed that they're not getting to work with the cadets. And Skywalker's like, it's their job to instruct and inspire. I'm like, that's rich. Have you tried that on your own Padawan lately? Or ever?
What if I knew where she was?
Windu's like, yeah, right. You just wanted to show off.
Never see Windu with a Padawan, do you?
No. Nobody wants to work with him. When I show off, it is instructive of what not to do, is what Windu said in his head. On the bridge? Arms shrug? There's space skeet shooting with the cadets. Captain Chinstrap is talking them through space battles, and one of the cadets asks what they practice on, and another trooper with plating stares at R2 and goes, malfunctioning droids.
Yeah, Archer's like, what the fuck, man? I'm right here.
Exactly. R2 goes into a flurry of curse words. Meanwhile, Captain Chinstrap orders Jax to take the gun first, but he misses. And they're really, like, cut and dry. They're like, nope, you miss, you fail, you die. Next. Whip goes up and also misses. And the captain's like, it's because you just don't have any experience. You just have training. And Lucky's like, hold my beer. Puts him in the chair. And Lucky, who something tells me has had loads of experience, hops into the chair and fires off the next shot and takes it out on the first try.
You know, like it's almost like he has experience firing large turbo lasers, you know, like say on a fire spray ship. And, you know, I don't know what the timeline is, but probably less than a year ago, he was firing them at Kenobi. You remember that?
Yeah. The adults are gagging, and Plated Boba ups the ante and he sends out 3 skeets in a tri-attack formation, and he takes them out no problem. And Plate Boba is shook. Professor Boba tells them all to head to the observation deck, and they head out, and Captain Chinstrap and Plate Boba are picking their jaws up off the floor.
You'd have to think though that even with the clones all being basically the same, they do excel in different things. So there'd have to be like some guys get assigned to be snipers, some guys are explosive guys. You'd have to figure once in a while a clone would come along. It's like, wow, this one's a great shot. You know, let's make him a gunner or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe it's how they get their nicknames.
Quite often, the commando Scorch, funnily enough, he got his nickname because I think he blew his eyebrows off in training or something like that.
In the hallway, Professor Boba asks Cadet 1151, like, use their nicknames, you dickwad. Anyways, where are the main stabilizers on the ship? And he's like, oh, the hull 17 behind the main reactor. And I'm like, something tells me that'll be important later. How many engines have to fail before the auxiliary power kicks in? Please stop giving all the information to Lucky in the background.
He's going to hope writing it down in a notepad. How many? How many?
You beat me to it.
Damn, he flighted the Concords. There's too many Fets on the dance floor. How many?
Lucky slips off down a side corridor, and he messages over a comm to receive a transmission. And my theory then is officially confirmed. This is the first time he's actually referred to as Boba rather than Lucky. As soon as he finishes the transmission, he runs into 2 clone troopers, and he's like, I'm supposed to go to Windu's. These troopers aren't that diluted, call him out for lying, and says, just say you're lost.
He's the 2 stupidest troopers on the ship right here.
Roger, Roger. Marv, the other trooper, is more diluted, however, because he points the way to Windu's quarters and lets him get on his way.
You think there'd be a little more security? Like, where are you supposed to be, kid? Jedi's quarters? I don't think so.
I guess because they're all like the same line. There's the diluted ones have the inherent trust of, oh well, this is one of us. So
Well, he just said said what he was on. He had to bring a message to him or something. So I guess they had no reason to disbelieve one of their own clones. But still, it just seems like a little lax on the old security to me.
Like, maybe the kid shouldn't be unattended. Maybe walk with him.
Yeah,
I don't know.
At least escort him.
Yeah. Over at Windu's ward, Boba reaches Windu's ward and enters. Boba traps the place and leaves.
Oh, God. I cannot believe that pun I've never heard before.
I remember cackling really loudly when I was typing that.
Listen, this project to rewatch is already in enough danger because we still got this Buffy episode to get to. Don't put it in further danger with these terrible puns.
I love you, babe, for watching Go Fish.
Oh my God.
We'll come around to that.
Continue.
After he finishes with Windu's ward, he's presumably heading back to the other cadets, but then he just runs straight into Windu, who reminds him to watch where he's going and then lets him pass. But Windu senses a disturbance in the Force. He does.
Imagine bumping into the guy who cut your father's head off and keeping it together. Like, it just goes to show how patient and calculating Boba Fett can be.
Yes, even at that age, because that is a easily irrational age. Like, you've got preteen hormones a-flowing in there. Like, I'm surprised he didn't just, like, headbutt him in the crotch. Like, it just...
Another thing that, like, he could have fallen apart and been scared of Windu because of what he did to Jango, but he wasn't afraid of him at all. All his reserve and keeping it together was because I'm going to get my revenge on this motherfucker. That's all it was. He was not scared of him.
Yeah. And I guess he didn't want to alert him because he wanted him to go back to his room like normal.
Yeah, he was playing a long game there. He's very, very patient.
He gives his number as 327 to Professor Boba as he catches up to him in the hallway and answers a question like he's been there the whole time. Like, way to do a group count, sir. You've only got, like, what, 4 of them? 5 of them?
I think 327 might be one of those numbers Star Wars uses once in a while. Like, you hear it in, like, Hangar Bay 327 or Detention Block 3. I think that rings a bell. I think it's one of those numbers they use.
Maybe March 27th is George Lucas's birthday. Who knows?
Did he say that was his clone number?
He didn't say it, but Professor Boba calls on him as 327, so maybe it's on his file or something, but Boba does say it out loud.
That's weird because clone numbers are always 4 numbers, which is stupid because there's not enough combinations, I don't think, but it's weird that they would give him a 3-number thing. Anyway.
It kind of reminds me of licensing numbers for doctors and other health professionals. You can tell how new somebody is once you get to kind of learn the license number system. So it's kind of like he's one of the originals. He's only got a 3-digit number. He's been around a while.
Yeah, but if that was true, he'd be an adult and probably already killed in action, I would think.
But he's not. He doesn't have that speed up age. So 327 might have actually been.
But they don't know that. If they found out he didn't have that sped up age, that would have been a big red flag. Interesting.
Yeah. Over back at Windu's ward, which is now Boba trapped. Just wanted to use that again. Windu is trying to use the washroom in peace. He's about to enter his lair for a meeting of the minds with the toilet when a clone trooper interrupts him just before he crosses the doorway. And he's like, Skywalker needs him. Right the F now.
I mean, seriously, like, Windu's like, can't a motherfucker take a shit? Like, give me a minute.
There was a lot of fiber in that meal. He instructs the trooper to, all right, just put this in my quarters for me, and heads off to the bridge. But as the clone trooper crosses the threshold, he's killed. And I'm willing to believe that this is the one that led Boba in the direction of his quarters. I don't know if it is, but I'm going with it. Alarms go off, and the professor orders them to remain in pairs and get to the nearest safe room. A trooper intercepts them and tells the professor that Windu is fine, but another man is down. Baby Boba is not impressed and runs off the first chance he gets. Like, keep a track of your children. I mean, they're looking to the Jedi for how to treat your kids, right? So never mind. Skywalker determines that this wasn't an accident because he finds the trap. They check in with navigation since the systems are near the room, but thankfully, all the damage is repairable. They just need to stop while they fix the ship. Skywalker thinks that Windu was the intended target, however, because the nabs weren't outright destroyed. In the hallway, Baby Boba is roaming through the halls and he's like trying to figure out with his contact what's going on next. The female voice from before tells him to blow the reactor and therefore the entire ship, which actually gives him pause for a moment. He doesn't want to do that because this is a bunch of people who look like his dad all around the ship.
Yeah, Fett's reluctance to kill the entire crew holds true to even old canon Boba because he only kills when his bounty requires it, and he does that efficiently and without emotion, but he's not a wanton murderer. Like, he only stuns a clone trooper in the moment because he's like, even though his actions are going to kill lots of people, it's just not in him to be a mass murderer for no reason. Like, he has to have a reason.
Yeah. That reminds me, actually, of the observation we made about Lady Ventress in the first season of Clone Wars, because we noticed through the watch-through that she wasn't killing a lot of people. She was knocking a lot of people out, but she was really only killing her targets or when necessary.
Yeah, same idea. They're not bloodthirsty in a way, a raving maniac is as a villain, but it's just they just do what they do. And
we cut over to Lucky Windu, and he states that there's a killer on board, and they assume that it's a stowaway rather than somebody with swoopy hair. Speaking of swoopy hair, Baby Boba is in the reactor room. He's intercepted by another clone trooper, and as he radios for another trooper to come escort Lucky back to the rest of the brigade, Baby Boba sets his sight on the trooper's weapon. The trooper's like, "Oh, here!" Hands it over without a second thought. And Boba attacks him and stuns him, I guess. He doesn't kill him, but he stuns him, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. He uses the weapon to overload the core and then runs out. They summarize that they've searched half the ship so far, and I'm a little shocked and impressed given the size of the ship that they've already managed to search half of it. There must be a lot of people on board.
Yeah, even these old Venator class Star Destroyers are still... It's like the length of the fucking area we live in. It's like the length of Eastern Passage. Like, you ain't searching that in half of an hour.
Exactly. Not to mention multiple decks of that. As they're summarizing that they've searched half the ship, the core explodes and blows a hole in the side of the ship. Guess they don't need to search there. And it almost sucks them out. Windu force holds Captain Chinstrap and stops him from being sucked out, but the same can't be said for 66% of the troopers that were with them. Skywalker hits an emergency button as the bulkhead closes, and we see an outside shot of the ship, and one of the engines on the back is completely gone. Ruh-roh. Captain Chinstrap tells the brigade, instead of heading to the safe room, let's have a fun game of how fast can you get to the escape pods. It's weird he tries to do it like a fun game so he doesn't scare the kids. This guy has kids, you can tell. As they head away, he tells another trooper to launch distress beacon because they're going down. Skywalker orders R2 in the reactor room to ready the fighters and tell everybody to get the Wait, don't we have a soundboard for that?
Fuck, we're all dead! Get the fuck
Essentially
out!
that. The beeping is just R2 swearing in the background. Boba is still sneaking around the ship that's falling towards the planet, and Professor Boba catches up to him, and he's like, alright, we're gonna head to the pod. So he hops into a pod with Jax and Hotshot and them, and Whip, and tells them where to rendezvous, and then he immediately sabotages his own pod right before takeoff. Skywalker is still on the bridge because he's trying to get Captain Chinstrap to pull a Jedi and just leave the ship behind. But Chinstrap is the only one in the Star Wars universe I've seen so far who has the captain goes down with the ship mentality.
Well, here's the thing, is that so many of these officers and stuff on these cruisers are clones. This guy's not a clone. Killian's not, he doesn't have to obey blindly because he's an independently thinking human. So he's like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah. This is where I find out he's an admiral, not a captain. But the nickname stands. He tells Skywalker to pound sand because it's his ship, but Skywalker, leaver of 1,000 broken ships, doesn't care about this sentiment. And Chinstrap makes it really clear his opinion of the Jedi in this moment because he says Jedi as if it was a dirty word. In the pod, the other cadets are assessing the situation, but Jax may have a plan. Nearby, the ship, the fighters have deployed and they're checking in with Admiral Chinstrap. I will update the rank. And he's like, the ship is falling towards the planet. I've never had the opportunity to take a physics class in high school, but I've seen Armageddon and Deep Impact. This is not a small ship. Won't it just, cause an extinction level event of whatever's on the surface if that crash lands?
Well, not if it breaks up. I don't know.
But they're like, okay, we're going to try to set her down. Sir?
They don't.
Okay.
Star Wars doesn't really seem to deal with the whole re-entering an atmosphere and the fiery bits of it because you never see that in Star Wars.
That's true. Professor Boba, who we finally learn is actually called Sergeant Crasher. That's not a good sign, guys. They can't get a hold of the pod, and Windu thinks that the saboteur may be involved, and they need to find that pod. My theory about Crasher is that he was a pilot, but now he's put in charge of the cadets instead of being allowed to fly.
That's entirely possible.
In the pod, and the kids notice a ship. The ship is familiar.
I knew that sound.
It docks with the escape pod, and 2 people enter the pod. Nobody who I recognize. One is the woman that Boba was communicating with, and her name is Aura. She congratulates him and names him. The other cadets realize what's happening, and Aura's like, all right, kill the witnesses. Boba doesn't want to, but he just detaches the pod and flies off, but leaves them alive, which is nice. I'm actually a little surprised they left them alive. The cadets are trying to make the best of a bad situation, but the Jedi locate them, and they haven't heard from Admiral Chinstrap since he entered the atmosphere to set down his crashing cruiser. After they send the coordinates for Professor Boba to recover the remaining cadets, they're going to head back to the planet to see if they can find the Jedi cruiser. There's some conversation, make-up conversation, because I guess the cadets were fighting. But there's just this moment of camaraderie between the brothers that were betrayed by Lucky, or Boba. Jax hasn't written Lucky off yet and hopes he's like them, because if he is, he might realize the error of his ways. And I'm like, sorry boys, he's unfiltered Django. Good luck with that. In closing, my prediction was right, I guess. More right than any of my other ones have been, because usually I'm really good at picking the characters that won't be in the episode with my predictions. But I picked up on Lucky right away, so I'm proud of myself. Now, I guess the question that we need to ask ourselves is, do we agree with Lucky?
On what matter?
Well, I guess with this episode and his quest for vengeance against Windu.
I honestly do. I think he's got every right to go after Mace Windu, and in fact, I think this is what the Book of Boba Fett show should have been about, is just forget all that crime lord stuff. They should have done 8 episodes of just Fett going through the underworld and going after information until he found an old Mace Windu, and then in the final scene where Boba could have had this redemption arc and spared his life, nope, flamethrower, end of show, and that's just it. If they'd done that, the fans would have lost their shit. Just 8 episodes of Boba Fett rampaging across the galaxy and killing Mace Windu. That's what Book of Boba Fett should have been about. Anyway, I digress. I mean, I think he had a right to avenge his father. I mean, Mace didn't have to cut Django's fucking head off. He didn't.
Nope.
So I think Boba's very much entitled to his mission of revenge. So the people that were in his fire spray, the girl is called Aura Singh. She's a bounty hunter, and she's figured into both old canon and new canon. And the other guy is Bosk, who is a Trandoshan bounty hunter, and we see him for the first time in Empire Strikes Back. He's one of the small group of bounty hunters first hired to go after Han Solo. So Bosk has been in Star Wars old canon forever. So I know he didn't say much there, but or anything, but he's instantly recognizable to old school Star Wars fans. So that was kind of cool. And I do believe in an old canon book, Fett kind of teamed up with Aura Singh when he was young too, and she, tried to manipulate him and take advantage of him and stuff like that, because and tried to take a ship. But yeah, that's who those guys are. Just a couple other bounty hunters of note.
I'd watch a young Boba Fett. I think I'd watch that series if they had like even just a one series, like a mini series, just Boba when he was younger.
That would be a great idea for a season 2 book of Boba Fett. I mean, the canceled video game 1313, where he was younger and his helmet and stuff looked different, and he was doing like that would be a great show. And they should have cast, I don't know if he's too old now, but the kid who played young Boba Fett, whose name is still escaping me, Daniel something. I gotta look that up because it's gonna kill me. Anyway, he was the perfect age to, and I think he was down for it. Like, let's do a Boba Fett show where he's just a teenager making his bones kind of thing. That would have been a great idea for a show.
Yeah. And
they still could have had Tamir Morrison involved in a project like that, because he could have played a number of clone troopers that he came across, or even do Django flashbacks. I mean, that would have been great.
Yeah. Anything with more Tamir Morrison, I'm on board for.
Oh, he's the best. I enjoy him.
Yeah. I do agree to a point about that he's perfectly within his right to go after Mace Windu, because Windu really overstepped. But he lost me at actually attempting to kill a cruiser full of people who basically were his dad.
Yeah, that was a hell of a plan B when plan A didn't work out. He's like, well, the bomb didn't get him, so let's blow up the whole ship and make sure.
Yeah, like, I was like, Aura, I feel like instead of going from plan A to plan B, you went from plan A to plan Z. Like, there's a few other options we could have tried in there.
I don't think older Fett would have done that at all. He would have figured out another way. But I think because he's still young, that Aura Singh kind of, influenced him to do it. He's like, well, do you want revenge for your father or not? This is your chance. So he just kind of took that shitty choice, which he didn't like. Obviously, he didn't like that choice.
No, and I'm surprised that she didn't blow up the pod on her way out. I'm actually shocked that they left the pod there, because she was instructed them to get rid of the witnesses, and he's like, okay, LOL, just leave them then.
I think in one of the old canon books, she keeps him around because he had like access to Django's accounts or something, and like the money he built up over years of bounty hunting. But yeah, Aura Singh's not a good person at all.
No, didn't get good vibes off of her. Well, that's the main thoughts that I had about this episode. That boy needs a hug. He just needs a hug.
He really does.
That, and I'm just really excited that this episode exists because I came up with Boba Trap. I have peaked, and soon to be screwed Windu. I have peaked. I'm not going to get any funnier than this, people. I'm sorry.
I did like this episode too, because anything with Boba Fett's backstory and fleshing that out, I always enjoy. So,
yeah.
Yep, I did like it.
They call season 2 Rise of the Bounty Hunters, but there hasn't been a lot of bounty hunter.
I made that same complaint not even that long ago in this podcast, and I was expecting. I mean, I watched this stuff when it first came out, but like I say, my memory is so hazy because it's been like 15 years in some cases. But yeah, there should have been more Cad Bane, and throwing in Fett, Aura Singh, and Bosk, and towards the end of it is not really making up for that. But yeah, this is a very misnomer for the season name, I think.
Yeah. Well, we can put it off no longer.
All right, yeah, let's move straight into this and get it over with.
This episode is very referenced throughout the rest of the series.
Oh God, really?
This episode's not going to go away. It shows up in some very weird ways. So
that seems like a weird choice for an episode. There's so many other episodes I would have referenced multiple times, but this one, okay.
I actually really enjoy this episode. You can't even not sell me on this one. I don't know why.
Anyway, here we go. Buffy season 2, episode 20. Go fish. My prediction is again completely off base. I said somebody loses a card game with a monster, and this show, if that wasn't that out there. Reigna is trying not to spit out her drink right now. I was thinking little Texas Hold'em with the Wolfman or some shit. I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Poker, betting for kittens or something.
All right, we're at the beach. There's a party. There's a victory party going on for the swim team. And Xander's whining about the cold. I'm like, it's California. Suck it up. In Cape Breton, we partied in the freezing cold in the woods, and we were grateful.
Do you know when this episode aired?
When?
May 5th. So why would it be cold on May 5th in SoCal?
Xander whining. Cordelia's glad they won because her cheer squad has wasted a lot of pep on losers. Willow flippantly calls attention to the school's high mortality rate. These kids are jaded. So there's awkward dancing, and when they filmed this, there was no actual music playing. There's no way. I had an actor friend in the 90s who was in an episode of Lex, which was filmed here in Halifax, and it was the same thing. Just pretending to party in the middle of the day on a soundstage, and it's just a lot of awkward shuffling around. And if you don't know what Lex is, look it up and don't say I didn't warn you. So Buffy's sitting on the shore looking morose, and here's a new guy, Cameron Walker from the swim team. He sidles up and he starts waxing poetic about the eternal ocean, blah blah. Whereas Buffy goes with big and wet. So at this point, predictions updated to some kind of merman monster of the week. It's too late for me to make it official, but that's definitely the way we're going. And I find it funny that a swimmer's last name is Walker. Shouldn't he be on the track team or something?
Maybe.
The Walker says he wants to get to know Buffy and he likes being around her, which is, I'm like, yeah, right. So meanwhile, the swim jocks are drowning poor old Jonathan in the water basin. This poor bastard again. Buffy intervenes. And is that Captain fucking Cold I see? Young,
But that celebrity.
Shit, what's his name again? Wentworth?
Miller,
right. Wentworth Miller, yeah. He's instantly recognizable even as a young man. He's still got that look,
I think he's a lot of the reason why I love this episode for him and like a few others. It was just a really good.
I like him in everything. I've never seen Jailbreak, but I'm sure I'd like him in that too. He's a lot of fun.
It is good.
All right, so Jonathan's pretty ungrateful for a guy that just said, "Somebody help me!" He's screaming for his life, and he's like, "I can handle this myself." And I'm like, "Well, clearly you couldn't."
Oh my god, it's like it's like not #not all men, but help me, not you.
Not like that. So the swim team bully who has a fish tattoo becomes entranced with the sea and walks off, and Captain Cold's like, "What is that stench?" I can't believe nobody said something smells fishy. So the bully's skin is like turned inside out, and there's a monster creeping away up a sewer tunnel, which is we know is everywhere in this town. Again, a pointed fact about Sunnydale having every possible geological biome there is. Like now we're on the beach, there's mountains over there, desert that way. So this creature looks like our Black Lagoon monster stand-in, I think. So Willow's still teaching computer class, and looks like she's doing some pie charts on either Windows 3.1 or old Apples. Either way, the nostalgia hits. So Captain Cold, whose name is Gage, but I'm going to be calling him Captain Cold, he's playing solitaire, not doing his assignments. Where did he find a naked lady version of the cards that I didn't know about?
I actually just posted in our chat the pictures of the old backgrounds. And I forgot that they actually used to have little animations every once in a while.
What was your favorite? I was a castle guy myself.
I did like the castle. I also liked the roses. Because I don't know, I just like that one. But for action, I enjoyed the palm tree one because something happened. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was like the sun got sunglasses on it or something like that for just a split second. But they all had actions that they would do every once in a while.
This is a bit of a tangent, but speaking of the 90s with screensavers, there was a screensaver that was called Johnny Castaway, where a little animated guy walked around a desert island and he would do all these different things and slowly build a raft. And, he never got rescued. He'd see boats going by or he'd miss the water skiers. And he'd run around, get all frustrated. But yeah, it was a similar thing. Like, you could just watch that for fucking hours. Poor old Johnny Castaway.
I always watch The Maze. I just wanted to go through The Maze again and again.
So Gage, Captain Cold, he's not doing his assignments because he doesn't have to, because the swim team are like stars, they're like royalty. So Snyder walks in. He seems very supportive. He really wants the team to win their state championship. So as the class lets out, Snyder asks Willow to continue subbing the class and intimates it'd be a great thing if everyone passed. Like say the star athletes. Like, what a double standard. So yeah, Captain Cold's grades aren't great, but Snyder, he's not trying to hear that. So he's like, cut some slack and recheck your figures. And I'm like, you can't do that, Principal.
You can't go from a 0 to a 50 just because you can swim fast.
Right. So in the hallway, Willow, Xander, and Cordelia. Xander's complaining about the unfairness, and well, for once, rightfully so. Cordelia calls him the voice of the common wuss, and this is how the world works if you're a winner. Everything else is propaganda for the ugly and less deserving. Xander bitches that Buffy's too busy being one of them, meaning she's hanging out with the swim team. So Buffy is hanging out with Cameron, who is blithering on about the beauty of the sea and the first person who swam the English Channel. I'm like, let's keep playing up the fish water stuff here. Yeah, okay, Cameron. Then it takes a very creepy turn here. I can see the look on your face. You're shaking your head already. He asks if she's wearing a bra, and then he locks the car door on her. Like, woo, he went to super creepy real quick here.
I just can't believe that with her reputation for violence that he would ever have thought this was a good idea.
Ah, arrogance. He says, I'm not going to hurt you. And Buffy says, it's not me I'm worried about. And then when he gets handy, she honks the car horn with his face and breaks his nose, which I loved. It was great. Of course, just then Snyder shows up, Principal Quark, and he's like, come here. And I can see I'm going to spend this episode being outraged at the double standard happening.
Yeah.
So in the nurse office, Cameron does some victim blaming, and Snyder's grilling Buffy. And he says, look how she dresses. I'm like, oh, what a classic rapey guy statement to make.
I just have a spot that celebrity in the scene. Did you spot her? The nurse.
Oh, the nurse. Yeah, the nurse. I did. Yeah.
Yeah, Pharrell from 2.5 Men, Edward Scissorhands, and Erin Brockovich.
Right. Didn't know her real name, but I definitely recognized her. They mentioned Todd, I think it was, alluding to what happened to him. That must have been the guy on the beach, the first guy.
Yeah, fish guy.
I assume they think he's just missing at this point and didn't turn into Merman from He-Man and just ran off. But the coach tells Buffy to dress more appropriately, which another gross double standard happening.
She's just wearing a tank top and like a long pair of pants. She actually wears like dress pants and stuff a lot of the time. Infuriating. Anyways.
At the library, Buffy defends herself to the gang, and they all seem a little distracted by the remains of Todd being found on the beach. It was just like a fucking hollowed-out skin suit. So they think something ripped him open and ate out his insides like an Oreo cookie, as Willow phrases it. At this point, perhaps we're supposed to think that happened, but I just assumed from the get-go that Todd came out of his skin like a monster, but we'll see. I imagine the creature from the Black Lagoon on your swim team. You'd win for sure, and this statement comes back around soon enough.
That's interesting that you caught on to that right away, because that's supposed to be like the weird left turn in the episode.
Yeah, it seemed quite obvious to me. I'm like, well, his skin's fucking hollow. He obviously hatched. I mean, come on. He didn't eat the whole inside. I mean, maybe he did, but I didn't think so. But I think the monster eats everything but the skin. And Buffy goes, so there are demons with high cholesterol? Giles gives a look, and Buffy says, you're going to think about that later and laugh. And I'm like, I doubt it.
That just made me want Mary Brown's.
So Cameron's taking a steam in the steam room because, as we know, that heals a broken nose. And then he literally bumps into Xander and they square off. And to his credit, I will say Xander does not allow himself to be bullied by the bullies. He goes face to face with them every time. He doesn't back down. So that is a little point in his favor. I'll say that much.
I've noticed that change in him ever since Larry, like his conversation with Larry. It's kind of like he got he felt like he was like, okay, maybe I'm on a similar level with these guys now. Like and plus, I mean, he's stared down Angelus in a
Yeah.
public setting. So this guy's nothing to him now.
Yeah, you see the perspective is really showing here. He just doesn't back down at all.
Yep.
So Xander hears someone getting worked over in the cafeteria, which is Rex, so he goes to look, and there's another human skin bag on the floor. Poor janitor's got to clean that up. And Xander turns around to a scary fish monster, and it's just funny we were saying how brave he is. He lets out this tiny, high-pitched little scream, and then the scene ends. Somehow he got away, and he gets to the library.
I just don't understand how he got away.
Yeah, that's very not clear. Like, they'd had him, and he just, next scene, he's just safe. Okay, so later he's in the library, he's describing it to Cordelia, who's doing like a police sketch, like the creature of the Black Lagoon. I didn't know she could draw, for one thing. Giles is very hilariously, condescendingly skeptical. He's like, oh, really? You saw a fish monster, did you? Like, of all people to be like, not believe him, Giles, that was funny. And I do find it funny that after all the horrors Xander has seen, that this monster of the week is the one that gives him the heebie-jeebies. He must have a fish phobia or something.
I mean, Mr. Fister, how have you guys not had nightmares about Mr. Fister ever since then? He was literally made of worms.
Exactly. Willow and Buffy quickly discern the pattern of the top swim guys are getting knocked off, and Captain Cold, as third best on the team, is probably next. Cordelia is concerned because there goes their state championship, and she's lost all will to cheerlead. Buffy uses the phrase, from whence it came, stop short, realize she's been spending way too much time around Giles, who seemed to take it as a compliment.
He really did, didn't he?
He's like, no. So their only real suspect at this point is poor little Jonathan, who is being bullied by the swim team and said he can take care of things himself. So I still think fish monsters are bursting out of people and not being eaten at this point. But if Jonathan is the fish monster, that's going to be great. I was like, I'm open to this possibility. That would be very funny. Oh, Willow puts her hand up like she's in class. Like, ooh, ooh. And Buffy's like, yes, Willow. So she vows to question him and crack him like an egg. Giles assigns Buffy to discreetly keep an eye on Captain Cole. Cordelia suggests Xander go to the parking lot and practice running like a man, not a woman, like how he fled the fishman. Xander hugs himself in fear. So Buffy's watching Gage, but he spots her watching him right away.
She's so subtle.
Yeah. So Willow's interrogating Jonathan in the empty computer room, complete with the light in his face, like she's some 50s cop. Like, cop to it, Pally. You conjured up a monster from the depths you were in, didn't you? And he's like, what? No, I went and peed in the pool. I'm like, oh. So in the hallway, Snyder and the swim coach are lamenting about the losses to the team. Snyder, I know of no two finer boys than Cameron and that other one. Typical principal court compassion. So they're still focused on the fucking state championship.
Yep.
They need to find a new team member, which Xander overhears, and I write down, I really don't want to see Xander in a Speedo. Yeah, you hide your face. You know it's coming. So we haven't been to the bronze in a while, so we do a quick scene there, and Buffy's still watching / stalking Captain Cold. He's playing pool. And he's like getting annoyed about it, and he confronts her. He's like, what are you doing? And Buffy claims she's a swim groupie, so he just walks off. So she confesses that, no, I think there's a killer and you might be next. But he thinks she's, just some crazy girl and tells her to scram. So Gage goes outside, and I think he mutters like, bitch. And then fucking Angel pops out from where he must have been lurking behind a dumpster, and he's like, oh, you must mean Buffy.
Sorry, I forgot you were there.
They have a little walk-in bitch session. Angel goes, who does she think she is? The chosen one? Great line. So they agree that someone should knock Buffy down a few pegs, and lucky for Captain Cold, Angel is recruiting and bites him. But Buffy comes outside and gives my favorite, good old kick in the face. But it looks like Gage's blood didn't taste very good. Angel's like, and anyway, he fucks off.
Fishy.
Yeah, so it tastes briny. What the hell? And then Gage completely changes his tune. He asks Buffy, please walk me home.
I actually can't help but like Gage.
Well, it is Wentworth Miller. I mean, come on.
Right?
Captain Cold stops in the middle of his lap to wave at Buffy like a fan. Yeah, this guy's turned right around. So they talk about how Angel didn't finish the job, and Buffy thinks he must have tasted steroids in the blood, which might account for the common factor in them being targeted as well as their winning streak. And I'm, oh, great, we're going to have a roided up fish monster. Excellent. But no dice on any Fishman research so far.
Let's just talk for a moment how this school in a small town has a pool.
Yeah, a fucking like big one too. It's got swimming lanes and everything.
Yeah.
Here we go. Remember how I didn't want to see Xander in a Speedo? I've never been closer to leaving this project. Meanwhile, Cordelia is like hot and bothered, and we do sadly a slow pan up of his entire fucking area. Willow's like shell shocked, and she's like, "Holy fuck!" So Xander actually made the team, and suddenly Cordelia is very happy with her boyfriend, at least until he does a high flying belly flop. I looked at her like, I'm like, all right, Nicholas Brennan, you got to take one for the team, belly flop it
Into that pea water.
Yeah, I forgot.
The timing of Jonathan's information is literally as he jumps into the pool. They're all like, oh.
They should have shown him off to the side giggling or something. So in the steam room, Xander's blithering onto the other guys, and a fishman's fingers lift up a grate nearby, because of course the school's got all kinds of grates and sewer entrances, because of course it does. Now Gage is alone in the locker room, and he's like, again, something smells awful, but it's not his armpits.
Xander was supposed to be watching him. That was the whole reason he was on the team.
He's probably trying to pull that Speedo off. He's probably trapped in it somewhere. Gen X nostalgia note, there's this locker room's got one of those big round communal hand washing things that are like a holdovers from the 60s or something. I had one in my junior high in like grade 5 in the 80s. You don't see those anymore. I can imagine a kid seeing that today and be like, what is that? Had like a foot thing you stood on to turn it on. So Buffy's hovering outside the locker rooms and hears Gage screaming, runs in and sees a fish monster, and Gage is screaming in pain, and in some alien-style shit, his skin rips off, and a fish monster comes out. So now she's got two of them to deal with, and to the show's credit, it doesn't look like they tried to make it look like two while only using one suit, and in fact, there's three. But there's more than one of them in the shot, so they said, all right, make more than one suit, or it's gonna look too cheap. Anyway, fight ensues.
The suits are good. Like, this is actually some quality costuming.
Yeah, they look pretty good. Buffy gets bit on the arm, and then the fishmen do a slip and slide along the floor and into the grate and escape. Now the part was funny as fuck. They looked like the actors probably having fun doing that. Whee! So, swim coach appears and helps Buffy get out. And the school nurse bandages her arm up. And Giles is here, and the coach is now clued into the monsters. And it seems like he acts like he didn't actually know the truth. So next thing is Willow checks their medical records. Side note, how the fuck did she get access to those?
Hackety magic.
Shit. So they still think steroid abuse is happening. I'm like, are we beyond that now? Like, they're fishmen. But anyway, hold that thought.
What steroids do that? I didn't learn about that in school.
Yeah, I look like Plankton from SpongeBob, but I can lift 300.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob Fish Pants. Buffy says, I'm breaking my nails every day fighting the forces of evil, and my French teacher can't even remember my name. Meanwhile, the swim team gets treated like royalty. So Xander's assigned to find out what they're taking, and Buffy's going fishing. And she and Giles head into sewer number 632 of Sunnydale, trank rifle in hand. But the mermen are onto them. In the steam room, it's funny how they're running out of members for the swim team. They make a point of saying that, and there's like fucking 13 guys in this steam room. I'm like, you got plenty of swimmers. Xander sort of prattles on, vaguely beating around the bush about how he needs a little something. Who's carrying? And then he just finds out, who's got the steroids? But then they say, it's in the steam. A team member calls it aromatherapy, and Vander's like, oh, fuck.
For the third time in this episode, spot that celebrity. Did you see him?
No. I might have been taking a note. Who did I miss?
Shane West. He was the one who said it was in the steam.
Who's Shane West?
From League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's what you'd probably best know him from. He was the young American guy who joined them. He kind of crashed their party when they were
Tom
all getting
Sawyer.
recruited. Yes.
Okay, no, I didn't catch that.
Also in ER, Salem, Gotham, Nikita.
Okay, that's a lot of things I have. I've only seen a bit of Gotham, so I can understand why I missed that one. But I definitely remember Tom Sawyer from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, the nurse and the swim coach are talking about how they need to adjust the mix. And I'm like, what the fuck are they giving them that turns them into fishmen? So the coach chucks the school nurse into a grate that drops like into a cistern, which is under all schools, as we know. And something pulls her under the water like Luke in the trash compactor on the Death Star. In the library, Xander is understandably upset, but Buffy says, don't break out the tartar sauce just yet. Your exposure's still low, but he's been exposed 3 times so far. Cordelia is, of course, worried about her reputation. At this point, we differentiate between black lagoons, which have monsters, and blue lagoons, which have Brooke Shields. So Buffy says we should lock up the swim team before they get in touch with their inner halibut.
Yes.
Willow heads off to question the nurse. Buffy says, you're really getting into this interrogation thing. And Willow says, the trick is not to leave any marks. I'm like, well, that's terrifying, Willow.
Smart girl, that Willow.
Willow's beating people with phone books and shit.
Oranges in a big canvas bag.
I'm not going to follow up on that. Buffy goes to talk to the coach and demands to know what's in the steam. The coach describes Soviet experiments about fish DNA with her athletes. And of all the explanations I expected, this was not among them. But the coach, who, for whatever reason, he's cracked it where all these Soviet scientists couldn't. Okay.
They couldn't just have him, chanting in the next room with a spell book? It couldn't have been something as simple as that?
It would have been easier to swallow. He's like, no, I was in my coach lab and doing all these experiments. He probably turned his wife into a fish. Oh, it works. All right, so rather than the risk losing the state championship, coach pulls a gun on Buffy and tells her to get in the hole. Amazingly, she complies. I'm like, she could have kicked that gun out of his hand. Come on. What the fuck? The school nurse's corpse floats by. Oh, that's nice. Meanwhile, Xander's checking his neck for gills and leaves Cordelia alone in the empty pool area. And in the background, she doesn't notice it at first. The merman just jumps into the pool, and I'm just like how casually it happened. He's just going for a swim, no big deal. And then she goes into this big speech, swimming around underneath how, she's going to be supportive and blah, blah, blah. And then Xander's like, that's not me.
The one part of that whole speech she had to fish Xander was, I'll get you a tub with some bath toys.
Meanwhile, Giles is locking up the entire swim team in his book cage locker, and only a guy named Sean is unaccounted for.
Stay calm.
Yeah, we're just going to lock you up in here for a while. No problem. It's standing room only. So Buffy's in the fish sewer tank. Great. Just what my reputation needs is that I did it with the entire swim team. As the mermen circle her.
Yep, this is a rape setup. So good.
Yeah, the coach even makes a point of saying they've already eaten, they have other needs. I'm like, this is beyond the pale now. This is fucked.
Yep.
So Xander finds the coach in back with the great hole as Buffy battles the fishmen. Xander and the coach struggle for the gun, and he actually elbows the coach in the face. So Xander reaches a hand down, and Buffy crouches down and super leaps up, and he helps her out. At which point, the coach pistol whips Xander, but then he goes into the fish hole, and his boys devour the coach.
No, they don't.
Do they not? Oh, I assumed they did. What, they didn't?
They have other needs.
Oh, why'd you have to say that? No, they devoured him. That's what happened.
No, because he was watching this happen to her, it was voyeurism, and then after he fell in the hole, they went, oh, I guess they really love their coach. And then I was like, stop watching. You're just
That's it. I'm off the project.
Now.
Goodbye, everybody. Sound of door slamming and tires squealing. I don't think he's coming back.
Crap, you can actually squeal tires now, too.
Yeah, all you hear is the spray of gravel in our basement. Neighbors' windows breaking. Better not. the team and Xander are like getting plasma transfusions to combat the change. I imagine just explaining that to the doctor. Look, we got Soviet fish DNA. We need new blood. Okay, roll up your arm.
The same doctor that dealt with the boy in a coma in the first season, the nightmare doctor.
Right. I've seen it all. So the existing fishmen, 3 of them have escaped, but Buffy thinks they won't be seeing them again. So I'm like, oh great, we got 3 fishmen loose in the sea now. Cancel the trip to the beach. I like how they show the fishmen swimming off into the distance, but like these are obviously actors who are trying to swim in these suits and like they're not getting anywhere. They're just sort of going up and down in the waves.
I noticed that, and they must be so heavy to swim in.
My lifeguard must have been just off on a shot.
Or like, you can go down, but you immediately have to come back up, because if you swim like this, you'll just go down.
Imagine one of the actors died in one of those suits and they lost him, then that washes up later on.
Oh my lord.
Jeez. I wonder if Wentworth Miller did his own fish suit stuff. You think that was him sliding across the floor, slip and slide before he went to the grate?
Oh, you know he asked.
He's like, I want to do my own stunts. All right, conclusion. Prediction way off again, although I think a card game with a monster would still be pretty funny. It was a fun little monster of the week. I suppose it was inevitable that we'd do a Black Lagoon style one. The suits weren't cheap looking or anything. The scariest parts of the whole episode was, the rapey, entitled mindset of the team before they were monsters before they were monsters, or at least that one guy fucking was. By comparison, the fishmen are just sort of innocent creatures acting out of instinct and not rapey malice. You almost kind of feel sorry for them.
Yep.
But the school is definitely better off with Cameron gone. Fuck him. But my big question is really, I don't know if I've asked this before, is why don't we see parents at the school every single week demanding explanations of where their fucking kids are? Like,
I mean, besides the fact that Joss Whedon didn't want parents involved at all, that's why you only really get Joyce in the beginning. They kind of touch on that a little bit later on. They kind of do address the ignorance of the parents or the willingness of the parents to be like, oh, well, that's just how it is.
It seems like one of those things the writers would kind of have to get around to at some point, because you just can't keep disbelieving that for so long. Anyway, I enjoyed this episode. There's plenty but I didn't like, so I only gave it 2.5 fishmen out of 5. I deduct some points for all the creepy double standard rapey shit, which is unfortunately as present now as it ever was in the 90s.
But Wentworth Miller, is that why there's one whole fishman just for him?
Absolutely. Yeah. Wentworth Miller is great. I very much enjoy him.
Yeah. I agree with that assessment. We got 2 episodes left of this series, of the season.
Oh my God. I mean, I was ready to quit this project a couple episodes ago and whatever that other one was, but thankfully I'm not even going to try to remember it. But the Fishmen one, Xander and Espeedo, like, you're lucky I'm still here.
Well, don't worry. We never see Xander in a Speedo again.
Wait a minute. The way you're saying that, we're going to see him in something.
No, I'm just actually thinking.
Oh, okay. I was like, we're going to see him in a fucking tutu or some shit, aren't we?
No, I'm pretty sure he's wearing a shirt from here on out.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll stay then. And also because I know at some point, I have no idea what season or episode, I know Pedro Pascal is going to turn up at some point. That part has been spoiled, but I don't know where, so I'm keeping an eye out for him. Don't know if I'll recognize him without his mustache, but I'm sure I'll spot him. And the last thing I'll leave you with tonight is that recently it was May the 4th, Star Wars Day, and to celebrate it, Reigna and I put Spaceballs on for Victor to watch for the first time ever, and he had an incredulous look with his hands in the air the whole time, like, what? But he did laugh, and I think he did enjoy it. So, we always talk about being there to witness your kid watch Star Wars for the first time. I watched him watch Spaceballs for the first time, and it was worth it. Good way to spend Star Wars Day.
Honestly, it was more rewarding than watching him watch Star Wars for the first time, because he was so young when he watched Star Wars for the first time that he was still very much in the Blue's Clues era. And in Blue's Clues, they sing a little song to jump into the paintings or into the shows of things that they're watching. And Victor, at one point, wanted to blue skidoo into Revenge of the Sith so that he could help out Obi-Wan and try to get try to get Anakin out of the lava.
Wow. Well, that's it for us this week. Until next week, keep firing, assholes!